Alrighty, you guys, I'm going to put the camera up here on my head mount because I'm a little bit slower than the average person. Didn't do that before I turned the camera on. But anyway, we're going to talk about today the in-depth series, episode 2, and today we're going to go and we're going to fish swim jigs. So, why am I going to do swim jigs and not other jigs? Because I made another jig video a little bit ago. I made a whole video talking about all 3 different types: football, flipping, finesse jigs, and swim jigs, which that's 4. I don't know how to count. But anyway, I made a whole video like that, and it ended up being 28 minutes long. That's what it was. 28 minutes long, and I thought, nobody's going to want to watch me talk about jigs for 28 minutes. That's going to be very boring. So I decided to cut the video down and just make it on swim jigs. So there are multiple different ways to make swim jig fishing better for you. There's multiple different ways to catch fish using a swim jig. You can use it as a wake bait. You can use it as a normal football jig. You can use it as a flipping jig. You can use it as a bed bait. You can use it for just about everything. A swim jig, another good name for a swim jig in my opinion is the hybrid jig. You can fish it from 20 feet deep all the way to 2 inches. You can fish it in hundreds of different situations. You can fish it in clear water. You can fish it in muddy water. You can fish it in windy conditions. You can fish it in calm conditions. And you can catch fish on them all day long. Oh, cast a little bit farther. But anyway, one of my favorite ways to fish a swim jig is just like this right here. Right under the surface where you can still see that swim jig swimming. But it doesn't completely hit the surface. Just fishing right underneath the surface, to where if that fish comes up and hits it, you can see it. Just like that right there. Just like that. Right there. Now another way you can fish a swim jig is on a bed. And how you can fish a swim jig as a bed bait is pretty simple. So my favorite way of fishing a swim jig during the bed fishing season is casting it along the bank. Doesn't matter what bank, as long as it's like a little bit shallower than others. You know, it's not a complete straight drop off to 25 feet. Fish it along the bank. Just come down here like this right here. Stand right here. Cast it down the bank like so. Let it hit the water and just swim it. Just swim it along. Then suddenly, oh, there's a thump. There was your thump. Now, take that jig. Pitch it about 2 feet. I messed that up. But pitch it about 2 feet past that thump. Swim it back to where that thump was and just drop it. Don't move it anymore, just drop it. Watch your line. You sit there and watch your line. Suddenly that line jumps and boom! You pull out a 12-pounder. That's how I like to fish swim jig during bed fishing season. Now, you can do that, or you can fish it like a normal jig. You know, you can just let it sink down just like so. You can pop it up. You'll pop it up every once in a while. You can fish it like that, or you can fish it as a flipping jig. You can flip it right out there like that. Let it sink down. Pop it up once in a while. I've done that. Haven't caught any fish doing it yet, but I've done it. Now this here is a Strike King, just normal turd grade swim jig, white color with a Berkley Sickfish trailer. Not my favorite trailer, but it works, so I haven't taken it off yet. But yeah, like I was saying, you can fish it anywhere from 25 feet deep all the way up to a couple inches. And that's something that is good about a swim jig. A swim jig is one of those baits, it's almost like a trick worm. You know how a trick worm has like 100 different uses? A swim jig has just as many uses. You can flip it just like that. Let it sink down, pop it up. There you go. There's your flipping fish. You can cast it down a bank looking for those bed fish. You feel a thump halfway through your cast. You flip right back in there and you catch that fish. There you go. There's your bed fish. Then, if the fish are a little bit lethargic, like I used this jig during the first I think it was my second fishing trip of the year. Casted it straight out there in the middle, reeling it just like this. Just like this. Real slow, kind of medium speed. Not really slow, but medium. And that's how I caught my first fish of the 2018 year. Ooh, there's a bluegill right there. But that's how I caught my first fish of 2018, doing that exact same thing with this exact same setup. 12-pound Berkeley trilene, a Shakespeare Alpha rod. Not my favorite rod setup at all. Honestly, in my opinion, it's probably one of the worst you could buy. If you're going to buy one, buy that setup right there. Mainly that reel. That reel is really good. I like those reels. The Shakespeare Agility. If you're going to buy a budget reel, it's only 30 bucks. Depending on where you buy it, it's also 50. If you buy it from Amazon, it's like 50. If you buy it from Walmart, it's like 30. But yeah, that's one of my favorite budget reels. But anyway, yeah. You can fish it just about any conditions that you want, from windy to clear and a sunny day, clear water and a muddy or a cloudy day, muddy water and a sunny day. It doesn't matter. A swim jig is just one of those baits that you can catch just about any fish that are in any body of water on. You can fish it in lily pads. You can fish it in trees and standing trees. You know, I've seen a lot of people catch fish using these in standing trees. I watched a video on TV of Kevin Van Dam using, I actually think it was this exact same swim jig with a white rage crawl on it in super duper thick lily pads. Now this was back before I really got into bass fishing, and I was thinking he was crazy because of them lily pads. He's going to get hung up a lot, but I think he only got hung up like twice in that whole episode that they showed anyway. But I'm sure he probably got hung up a few more times than that, but he was catching some monster fish, and they were coming straight up out of the water for it. Like, he was fishing it just under the surface around them lily pads, and he was catching some giant fish on it. Pretty sure he was down in Florida or Louisiana. I don't remember though. And he's just fishing it just like that, real slow underneath the water. Now, a few tips and tricks that you can use for these swim jigs. If you're on an area, or if you're on a lake that is really muddy, go with a black and blue, or a you know, if you buy a custom made bait, you know, black and red, black and white, it doesn't matter. If it's anything with darker colors in muddier water, works well. Now, brighter colors also work well in muddy water. You know, buy a white and chartreuse, a completely chartreuse, white, chartreuse, and red. I know there's some places that make that color. You know, buy something like that. If you're fishing clear water, go possibly with a green pumpkin, a bluegill color, a smoked shad, or a blueback herring. And this color here works well too, just plain white. Now, your trailer can be the difference between catching a fish that's been feeding on crawdads and a fish that's been eating shad. That can be the difference. If you're fishing a green pumpkin swim jig, but you're fishing a white swim bait trailer, that fish is probably eating shad or bluegill. But if you're fishing a green pumpkin swim jig and a crawl green pumpkin trailer, he was probably eating little green crawfish. So go with something that imitates crawfish, or fish your swim jig a little bit slower. Fish it right along the bottom. Okay, evidently I'm just going to smack the bank really hard. You know, fish that swim jig just a little bit slower than you averagely would, I guess you could say. You know, fish it just a little bit slower. Fish it right on the bank, or fish it right on the bottom. And if you're fishing a pond and you have 3 different swim jigs and you get more bites on the white than anything, but the fish that you're catching have bluegill in the mouth of it, throw a green pumpkin or black trailer on it. Now, I know it sounds stupid. It sounds very stupid, and a lot of people will probably think, well, that's stupid, Michael. Why would you throw a white jig and a green pumpkin trailer? Now, hear me out for a second, okay? So, back about 3 years ago, I was fishing a white jig as a swim jig. It was an Arky-style jig that you could buy at Walmart for like $3, if that. Now, on the back of it, I was using a black and red. It was that black shad color little crawfish on the back of it. I caught 2 fish fishing that same jig the same day. Actually, it wasn't the same day. It was 2 different days. But I caught 2 fish, and they were both around the 2-pound region. Now, you can't tell me that that fish didn't want to eat that bait, because they wouldn't have bit it if they didn't want to eat it. And especially the way I was fishing it. I was fishing it really slowly right along the bank. Them fish would have had to come up from the deeper water to eat it, because I was only fishing in about 6 inches of water. So, you know, just because your jig is one color, don't be afraid to change up your trailers. I've caught fish with black and blue jigs on green pumpkin trailers. I've caught fish with green pumpkin trailers on a brown jig. I've caught fish with red and black trailers on white and brown different jigs, completely different jigs, but I've caught fish on both of them. And then, of course, you know, everybody knows that the matching trailers also work well. I mean, that's just a given. You know, green pumpkin trailer with a green pumpkin jig. A white trailer with a white jig. A black trailer with a black jig. My 3 main colors, if you're going to buy 3 colors of jig, of a swim jig, my main 3 colors would be black and blue, green pumpkin, and a white or a shad. Those would be my main 3 colors if I was going to tell somebody to go and buy 3 colors of swim jigs. It'd be a dark color for the muddier water. It'd be a clear water color, which would be the green pumpkin. And then it would be just an all-around good color, which would be the white. And if you talk to a lot of different people, they'd say the exact same thing. And it's not just swim jigs either. Swim baits, whopper ploppers even. You know, if you're fishing a bait, or if you're fishing whopper ploppers and you want to get 3 colors, get a bright color, get a dark color, and get a neutral color. Get a color, if you're going to buy whopper ploppers, get a bone for your all-around good color. Get a balloon color or a black-yellow color for your darker water. And get a Sooner, I'm sure you guys have heard of that color. The Sooner color's got a lot of chartreuse and blue. Get that color for your muddier water, or get you that color for your clear water. Bluegill just swirled right there. I think I'm going to have to go get my fly rod and try to film a video. So, I hope you guys understood this video. I hope you guys learned something from it. I know it's not as long as my last in-depth video, but this time I'm only covering one style of bait instead of, you know, one that has, you know, 100 different ways to fish it. This one here still has its places, but it doesn't have as many as a spinnerbait does. So I hope you guys like this video. If you do, hit the like button and make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to be doing one of these every week, or maybe even twice a week, depending on the way I feel. So if you have any suggestions for the next week's in-depth episode, let me know, because I will 100% do your suggestion. Okay? So thanks for watching. There's a bluegill. I'm going to go get a fly rod. See you later.